The planet Velar had seen many wars. Its red skies and cracked land carried stories of battles fought between the native Velari and those who came from the stars. Among the many visitors, humans had become the most powerful and the most hated. The Velari believed humans were weak in spirit but strong in weapons. A fragile peace stood between them now, but no one truly trusted the other side. To keep this peace alive, a ceremony was arranged. It was not a battle to the death. It was not war. It was a test, a trial by combat. One Velari and one human would face each other in front of both sides. No weapons of mass destruction, no armies, just skill, honor, and strength. The Velari chose their most respected warrior, Commander Kayla. She had led many victories. She was strong, fast, and fearless. Her hair was tied back in braids, and her silver armor shined under the twin suns. She stood tall on the stone platform in the center of the great arena, where thousands of her people watched from the stands. The humans sent someone unexpected. Not a general, not a soldier with high rank. They sent a quiet man named Rian. He did not wear heavy armor or carry a sword. He stepped into the arena wearing a light battle suit and a calm expression. His face was steady, and his eyes watched everything. He looked more like a thinker than a fighter. Kayla narrowed her eyes. She felt insulted. Was this the best human command could offer? Velari leader raised his hand. A deep voice echoed through the arena. Let this battle begin. No death, no surrender. Only honor. Kayla didn't wait. She grabbed a long metal spear from the ground beside her. She spun it once in her hand, then threw it with full force at the human standing 20 paces away. Her people roared, expecting the human to fall or at least stumble. But Rian didn't move. His hand shot up, faster than anyone could follow. The spear stopped midair. He had caught it cleanly, holding it just inches from his face. The entire arena fell silent. Kayla froze. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in shock. No one had ever caught one of her spears, not even the fastest Velari warriors. She stepped forward, trying to understand what just happened. Rian looked at the spear, then at Kayla. His voice was calm when he spoke. I don't want to fight, he said, but I will defend myself if I must. Kayla clenched her jaw. Her pride burned inside her chest. She walked slowly toward him, her eyes never leaving his. The crowd was still silent, waiting to see what would happen next. You insult me, she said firmly. You step into my arena, catch my weapon, and speak of peace. Do you think that makes you strong? Rian shook his head. Strength is not only in fighting. Sometimes it is in stopping a fight. She took another step closer. Do all humans speak like this? No, he replied. Most don't. Kayla studied his face. There was no fear, no mockery, only a quiet truth. She reached out and took the spear back from his hand. He let it go easily. You're not what I expected, she said, her voice softer now. And you throw better than I expected, he replied. She almost smiled, but quickly turned her back and walked to her side of the arena. The Velari council whispered among themselves. Some were angry, some were curious. The human leaders looked at each other, unsure of what to make of the moment. The challenge had been brief, but it had changed something. Kayla felt it deep in her chest. This man, this human, was not like the others. And for the first time in her life, she didn't know if that was a good thing or a dangerous one. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the black hills of Velar, Kayla stood alone near the edge of the training field. She looked up at the stars, thinking of the spear she had thrown and the man who caught it like it was nothing. She had wanted to show power, to prove humans were beneath her. Instead, she had shown the world that even a warrior like her could be surprised. Behind her, she heard footsteps. She turned and saw Rian, walking slowly, holding the same calm expression. I did not mean to embarrass you, he said gently. You didn't, she replied. You made me curious. Rian nodded and stood beside her, looking at the same stars. Kayla crossed her arms. Tomorrow, I will challenge you again. Not with a weapon, but with training. I want to see how you fight. I want to understand you. Rian looked at her and said, If understanding each other brings peace, I'll accept. They stood there in silence, two warriors from different worlds, not enemies, not yet friends, but no longer strangers. In that quiet moment, Kayla did not know what the future would bring. But one thing was certain in her heart: the man who caught her spear had caught something else to her attention. The sun rose slowly over the Villari capital, lighting the red stone buildings with a golden hue. The air was still, but inside Kayla's chest, something stirred. She had woken early, her mind filled with images of the human, Rian, the way he stood still, the way he caught her spear with one hand, and the way he had spoken so calmly. It bothered her, not because he had disrespected her, but because he had shown strength, but without pride. That was not how warriors behaved in her world. Kayla stepped into the training grounds wearing her combat uniform. It was simple but honored. Her hair was tied back as always, and her steps were sharp. Round her, other Villari warriors trained with swords, staffs, and spears. She did not join them. She waited for Rian. Rian arrived right on time. He wore a light gray suit, flexible and smooth. His movements were quiet, like someone who didn't need to prove his presence. Some of the Villari warriors stopped to stare. Others laughed quietly, expecting him to be weak without a proper weapon. Kayla raised her hand and called out, "Today, I will test your skill. Show me how you defend." Rian nodded without a word. She handed him a wooden training staff. He looked at it, then turned it in his hand slowly. His grip was loose, yet balanced. Kayla moved first. She swung her staff at him with speed. He blocked it with ease. Then she stepped forward, trying a sweeping strike. He dodged, then lightly tapped her side with the end of the staff. It was not an attack, just a reminder that he had seen her opening. Her eyes narrowed. She increased her speed. Blow after blow came from her side, but Rian never struck back hard. He defended, moved, redirected, but never attacked with force. It made her angry, not because he was better, but because he wasn't trying to win. "You hold back," she said, breathing hard. "I do not wish to hurt you," Rian replied, still calm. "I don't need your mercy," Kayla snapped. "It is not mercy. It is control," he said. She paused, lowering her weapon. "What do you mean?" Rian looked at her seriously. "In battle, anyone can strike, but a real warrior knows when not to." Kayla didn't speak. His words were strange, but they stayed. In her mind, round them, the other Villari had gone silent. They had watched the duel. None of them laughed now. Later, after training, Kayla walked through the council building. Elder Joran, the head of the Villari Council, approached her. His face was lined with years of battle. "You train with the human," he said. "Yes," she replied. "What do you see in him?" Kayla thought for a moment before speaking. "He does not fight for pride. He fights only when needed." Joran frowned. "That is not the Villari way." Kayla lifted her chin. "Maybe our way is not the only way." Joran stared at her for a long time, then walked away without another word. That evening, Kayla sat outside the arena walls, where wildflowers grew between cracks in the stone. She watched the stars and listened to the wind. Rian joined her, sitting a few feet away without speaking at first. She didn't tell him to leave. After a while, he spoke. "Your people are proud, but they're also afraid." Kayla turned to him. "Afraid of what?" "Of losing what they know, of being seen as weak if they change." Kayla looked down. She understood that fear to well. "In your people," Rian gave a small smile. "We hide our fear behind technology, but fear still rules many of our choices." She looked at him carefully. "Then why are you different?" He answered slowly. "Because I saw what fear did to others. I made a choice not to carry it." Kayla was quiet. She picked a small flower and held it between her fingers. "You confuse me." "Human. My name is Rian," he said softly. "Rian," she repeated. "Why did you catch the spear?" "Because if I had dodged it, it would have hit someone behind me." He said. Kayla blinked. She had not thought about that. Her throw had been powerful. If it missed, it could have hurt someone in the crowd. "You saw that in a moment. I've trained to see many things," Rian replied. Kayla looked away. She felt something she couldn't explain. Not fear, not anger. Something new. Something that made her heart beat slow but strong. The next day, Kayla stood with her squad during a gathering. Her fellow commanders whispered about the human. Some still believed he was weak. Others began to doubt. One commander, Varek, stepped beside her. "I heard you train with the human," Varek said. "I did," Kayla replied. "Did he impress you?" Kayla turned her head and answered without hesitation. "He did." Varek said nothing more. That afternoon, Kayla saw Ryan helping a young Velari train with a staff. He corrected the boy's stance gently. He smiled. The boy laughed. There was no fear between them. Kayla crossed her arms, watching. From a distance, this human had come as a symbol of peace. But he was doing more than that. He was becoming part of her world. And she didn't know if that scared her or gave her hope. She remembered his words. Strength is not only in fighting. Sometimes it is in stopping a fight. Maybe there was another kind of warrior. One who didn't need to prove power through pain. Kayla walked away quietly, but her mind stayed on the image of Ryan catching her spear. Something inside her had shifted. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she knew it had begun the moment he looked into her eyes and refused to fight just to win. The morning was quiet. Clouds moved slowly across the sky of Velar, casting soft shadows over the large stone training grounds. Kayla stood near the edge of the field, watching her soldiers go through drills. Her sharp eyes followed each movement, but her mind was not fully present. Her thoughts kept returning to Ryan. She remembered how calmly he had moved during their practice, how he had stopped her spear without fear, and most of all, how he had refused to strike her even when he could. He was not like the others, and that difference kept pulling her curiosity closer. She turned to her second in command, a young Velari named Diran. "Send a message to the human camp," she said. "Ask Ryan to meet me here. So I request a training session." Diran raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He gave a quick nod and left. Kayla crossed her arms and stared at the sky again. She told herself it was only training, nothing more. But in her chest, she felt something uncertain. A few hours later, Ryan arrived at the training field. He wore the same light armor, simple and clean. He bowed slightly in greeting. "You asked for me," Kayla nodded. "I want to understand your way of combat. Today, you will show me." Ryan looked around. "Should we begin here?" "No," she said. "Follow me." She led him to a smaller, private area behind the training ground. It was quiet, with soft dirt underfoot and wooden dummies lined up along the walls. This was where elite warriors trained when they didn't want crowds. Kayla handed him a wooden sword. She took one for herself. "You lead," she said. Ryan nodded and moved to the center. He held the sword with ease, his grip loose but ready. His movements were smooth, not rushed. He showed her footwork, defensive positions, and a few simple strikes. His voice was calm as he explained, never commanding, only offering. Kayla followed. She was fast, strong, and skilled, but his way was different. Less power, more timing. She found it difficult to match his rhythm at first, but she did not stop. After some time, they began to spar. Wooden blades clashed in the air, and their bodies moved in circles. Kayla struck fast. Ryan blocked. Ryan moved forward. Kayla stepped back. It became a dance of patience and speed. Finally, Kayla stepped back and lowered her sword. Her chest rose with each breath. "You fight with balance, not with force." Ryan wiped sweat from his brow. "Force can break things. Balance keeps things standing." Kayla nodded slowly. "You would have made a strange Velari." He smiled. "Maybe that is why we are learning from each other." They sat down on a bench nearby, both silent for a moment. Kayla looked at him. "You have studied our ways, haven't you?" "Yes," he replied. "Before coming here, I learned about Velari history, culture, and battle methods. I didn't come to win a fight. I came to avoid one." Kayla rested her arms on her knees. "That is not easy here. Our people respect strength above all." "I know," he said. "That is why I caught the spear. Not to insult you, but to speak in the only language your people would understand." Kayla turned her head toward him. "You speak carefully." but your actions are louder. Rion's eyes met hers. Sometimes silence speaks best. A long silence followed. It was not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Kayla stood up. Come, there is someone I want you to meet. She led him through a narrow path behind the council building. A small garden opened up, full of blue and white flowers. In the center, a young boy was sitting on the ground, practicing with a short wooden stick. When he saw Kayla, he jumped up and ran toward her. Sister, the boy said with a bright smile. Rion stopped, surprised. He is your brother, yes, Kayla said. His name is Saren. He wants to be a warrior, but he is still learning. Saren looked at Rion. You are the human everyone talks about. Rion smiled kindly. I suppose I am. Can you show me how to fight like you? The boy asked. Rion looked at Kayla. She nodded. He knelt beside Saren and began showing him how to hold the stick properly. Saren watched carefully, copying each move. Kayla stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the two. It was a strange sight, a human teaching a Velari boy in a quiet garden. No shouting, no commands, only calm learning. After a while, Saren ran off to practice on his own. Kayla and Rion remained. You are good with him, Kayla said. I like teaching, Rion replied. And he learns fast. Kayla looked at the sky. He lost his father in a battle against humans. He should hate you, but he doesn't. Rion said. No, she agreed, because he sees your actions, not your face. They stood in silence for a while. Then Kayla asked something unexpected. Do humans ever feel unsure of their path? Rion looked at her gently. Often. But doubt helps us see more clearly. Kayla nodded slowly. I feel unsure. That has never happened before. It means something is changing, Rion said. She turned to face him. Change is not easy here. I know, he said. But sometimes, one step is enough to begin. Kayla looked at the ground, then back at him. You may return tomorrow, if you wish. I will, Rion said as he left the garden. Kayla stayed behind. She looked at her brother, still swinging his wooden stick in the air, pretending to be a great warrior. Then her eyes followed Rion's fading figure. For the first time, she wondered what it would be like if a human walked beside a Velari. Not in war, but in something else. Something that neither of them fully understood yet. Night fell over the Velari city. The twin moons rose high, covering the sky with a pale blue light. Most of the city had gone quiet. Fires burned low in the metal lanterns, and the sound of guards patrolling echoed softly in the streets. But something was not right. Rion walked back from the garden, his mind still thinking about Kayla and her younger brother. He had not expected the day to feel so peaceful. For the first time since landing on Velar, he had seen real smiles. But peace on a planet like this was always short, deep inside. He knew something was coming. As he neared the human quarters, a sudden sound caught his attention. A sharp cry, then metal clashing. Rion's body moved before his thoughts. He ran toward the noise. In a narrow street near the edge of the city, a group of masked figures surrounded a small Velari boy. Rion's heart jumped. It was Saren, Kayla's brother. Without thinking, Rion jumped into the middle of the attackers. One of them swung a blade at him. Rion dodged and kicked the attacker to the ground. He blocked another strike and pushed the next figure into a wall. There were too many, but he did not back down. Run, Saren, Rion shouted, but the boy was frozen in fear. One of the masked figures lifted a weapon toward the child. Rion moved fast, throwing himself between the attacker and Saren. The blade cut into his shoulder. He groaned in pain but stood firm, protecting the boy with his body. Then, a roar came from behind. A tall figure ran into the fight. It was Kayla. With sharp movements, she threw one of the attackers to the ground. Her fists and feet moved like fire. The rest of the group tried to escape, but she struck them down quickly. Only one managed to run off into the shadows. Kayla ran to Rion and Saren. Blood stained Rion's shoulder, but he was still standing. He turned to her with tired eyes. He's safe, he said, breathing hard. Kayla knelt beside Saren. Are you hurt? The boy shook his head, eyes wide with shock. She stood and turned to Rion. You were not armed, You fought them anyway. Rian gave a weak smile. I couldn't let them hurt him. Kayla looked at the wound on his arm. You need treatment. Now, she helped him walk to the medical tent nearby. The healers worked fast, closing the wound and stopping the bleeding. Rian said little during the process. He only winced once when the bandage was pulled tight. Kayla stayed beside him. The entire time, later, outside the tent, Kayla and Rian sat on a stone bench. The city was still quiet, but now it felt different. The danger had shown itself, and Kayla could not ignore it anymore. Those were not just thieves, she said. They moved like trained soldiers. Rian nodded. They were after your brother. They weren't interested in me. Kayla's hands tightened into fists. Some of our people don't want peace. They see the humans as enemies forever. And your brother almost paid the price, Rian said gently. Kayla looked at him. You saved him. You took a blade for him. Why? Rian's voice was soft. Because he matters to you. She blinked and looked away. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, her voice came, quieter than usual. I was trained to believe humans only care about power. But you protected someone without thinking. Not for gain. Not for honor. Just because it was right. Rian looked at the night sky. Not every human is the same. Just like not every Velari wants war. Kayla nodded slowly. I know that now. But the council doesn't. Will they listen to you? Rian asked. I don't know, Kayla replied. But I will speak. This cannot be ignored. She stood and turned to face him. Rest. You need strength. As she walked away, Rian watched her go. He could see it clearly now. Kayla was changing. She was no longer just a warrior. She was becoming a voice for something greater. The next morning, Kayla called a meeting with the Velari Council. The room was large and full of stone pillars, with elders sitting in a half circle. They looked at her with hard eyes. You were attacked, Elder Jordan asked. Yes, Kayla replied. Not just me. My brother, a child, and the humans saved him. Some of the elders whispered among themselves. Elder Vera leaned forward. Do you believe this was a human trick? No, Kayla said firmly. The attackers were Velari, trained, organized. This was planned to stop peace talks. Elder Jordan frowned. And what do you ask of us? Open your eyes, Kayla said. Look past the fear. Not all humans are enemies. Rian has proved that with his actions. He bled for my brother. That means more than words. Silence followed. The council did not speak right away. Outside the chamber, Rian waited. His arm was still sore, but he stood straight. When Kayla came out, he looked into her eyes. Well, he asked. They heard me, she said. But they said nothing. Rian gave a small smile. Sometimes silence means they're thinking. Kayla sighed. I hope so. We don't have much time, if more. Attacks come, peace will break. Rian nodded. Then we stop the next one together. Kayla looked at him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke softly. You stood between danger and someone I love. I won't forget that. Rian's voice was quiet. And I won't forget that you fought beside me. As they stood under the rising sun, side by side, the bond between them grew stronger. Not because of duty, not because of orders, but because trust had been earned, and in a world full of enemies, that trust was a rare and powerful thing. Days passed since the attack on Kayla's brother. The city of Velar was quieter now, but tension lingered like a shadow over the streets. The Velari Council had not made any clear decisions. Some members whispered that peace was a mistake. Others hoped it could still work. Kayla found herself caught in the middle. She had spoken for peace in the council chamber, but many still saw her as weak for trusting a human. The warrior who had once been proud and fearless now felt unsure. Her thoughts often returned to Rian, but something had changed between them. Where once Kayla had watched him closely, trying to understand, now she found herself avoiding his gaze. She was afraid of what her feelings might mean. In her world, a Velari woman, especially a commander, could not show weakness. And caring for a human was considered a dangerous weakness. One morning, as the sun rose red over the city, Kayla walked through the training grounds. She heard voices and stopped. Rian was speaking with some Velari soldiers. They looked curious but respectful. She felt a sharp pain in her chest and quickly turned away. She did not want to see him now. That day, Kayla spent hours alone in her quarters. She paced back and forth, trying to sort through her thoughts. She remembered the moment he caught her spear, the calm strength in his eyes, the kindness he showed her brother. But she also remembered the warnings from her people. Humans are not to be trusted. They will use you. You will lose honor. Her heart fought with her duty. She wanted to believe in peace. She wanted to believe in Rian. But the walls of her world were strong. Later, her second-in-command, Darren, entered her room. "You avoid the human," he said quietly. Kayla looked at him. "I cannot afford distractions." Darren shook his head. "This is more than distraction. You are changing." Kayla sighed. "Change is not easy, especially not when the future is unknown." Darren looked at her with understanding. "Maybe. It is time to trust what you feel." Kayla did not answer. Meanwhile, Rian sensed the distance growing between them. He had hoped their bond would grow stronger after the attack, but now she seemed distant. Careful with her words, one evening, he found her near the edge of the city, watching the stars. "Kayla," he said softly. She turned, surprised. "Rian, I feel you pulling away," he said. "Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head. "No, it is not you." "Then what is it?" She looked down. "Our people will never accept this. Me, trusting a human. Me, caring for one." Rian stepped closer. "What if they don't have to know?" Kayla looked up at him. "I cannot hide who I am." He smiled gently. "Then we face them together." She sighed. "It is not that simple. Nothing worth doing ever is," he said. For a moment, they stood silently, the distance between them filled with unspoken thoughts. Suddenly, a loud voice called out nearby. Villari soldiers were gathering. The council had made a decision. Kayla's heart sank. The peace treaty was at risk. She looked at Rian. "We must act. If the council breaks the treaty, war will start again." Rian nodded. "Then we stop it, together." That night, Kayla met with trusted allies. They planned to reveal the truth behind the recent attacks. Rebels within the Villari were trying to destroy peace. They needed to expose them before it was too late. Days passed in secret meetings, in quiet preparations. Kayla and Rian worked side by side. She admired his calm thinking. He respected her strength. But still, the walls around Kayla's heart remained. One evening, as they trained together, Kayla stopped suddenly. "Rian, why do you fight so differently from us?" He smiled. "Because I fight to protect, not to conquer." She looked at him, eyes full of questions. "Will your people understand that?" "I hope so," he said. "But even if they do not, I fight for what is right." Kayla nodded slowly. "Then I will fight with you." As the stars shone over Velar, two warriors from different worlds stood together, ready to face the challenges ahead. But the greatest battle might not be with enemies outside. It might be the battle within their own hearts. The day of the council's big meeting arrived. The great hall was filled with Villari leaders, warriors, and elders. The air was thick with tension. Outside, the sky was gray, matching the mood inside. Kayla stood at the front, her armor shining, but her heart heavy. Rian was by her side, calm but ready. They had prepared carefully. The plan was to show the council the truth about the rebels who wanted to break the peace. Kayla knew that if they failed, war would return. When the meeting began, voices rose quickly. Many Villari spoke with anger and suspicion about humans. Some shouted for war. Kayla raised her hand, asking for silence. She began to speak. "My brothers and sisters, the attack on my brother was no accident. It was planned by those who want to stop our peace. They wear our faces but follow dark paths. We cannot let fear rule us." Some nodded, some scowled. Rian stepped forward. "I have fought beside your warriors. I have bled to protect your people. We are not enemies. We are stronger together." The council was silent. Then a voice called out, "Prove it." Kayla took a deep breath. "I will." She reached into a small box and pulled out a recorded message. It showed the rebels planning the attack, their weapons, and their hatred. The room gasped. "Look at this," Kayla said. These are our true enemies, the council whispered. The anger faded to concern. Then Kayla raised her spear. To show you the power of peace, I will do what was once unthinkable. She turned. To Rion, you caught my spear once. Today, I will throw it again. But this time, it is not a challenge, it is a message. The hall went quiet. Kayla stepped back and threw her spear with strong force. All eyes watched. Rion's hand shot out and caught it, steady as before. The crowd was still for a moment. Then slowly, one by one, the Velari warriors knelt. Kayla looked at Rion with respect and something more. You are a true warrior, she said. Rion smiled. And you are a true leader. The council voted to keep the peace treaty. Outside, the city breathed a sigh of relief. But the hardest part was not over. Later that night, Kayla and Rion stood on a hill overlooking the city. Kayla looked at them. Stars, this victory is ours, but the future is still unknown. Rion took her hand. We face it together. Kayla smiled softly. I have learned much from you, not just about fighting, but about trust. He looked at her. And I have learned from you about strength that does not hurt. She turned to him. There is something I must tell you. Rion waited. Kayla's voice was quiet. I thought I would never care for a human, but you have changed that. He smiled gently, and I never expected to fall for a Velari warrior. They stood close, their hands still joined. Neither knew what the future held. But in that moment, two worlds began to unite, with hope, trust, and courage. The day was bright and clear. The twin suns shone over the Velari city as the final ceremony began. Today, peace was to be celebrated. The treaty between the humans and the Velari was signed, and leaders from both sides gathered in the great plaza. The air was filled with hope, but also with quiet nerves. Many still doubted this peace would last. Kayla stood tall in her silver armor. Beside her was Rion, wearing his simple battle suit. Both carried the weight of their people's hopes. The crowd watched silently as Kayla stepped forward, holding her spear. This spear had once been a weapon of war. Now, it was a symbol of something new. She looked at Rion and smiled softly. Then she threw the spear not as a challenge but as a message of trust. Rion caught it easily, holding it steady. The crowd gasped and then broke into quiet applause. The Velari warriors lowered their weapons and bowed their heads. It was a sign of respect and acceptance. After the ceremony, the leaders of both races spoke about cooperation, understanding, and the future. Rion was invited to join the Velari Council as a human representative. Kayla accepted this with pride. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Kayla caught Rion's arm gently. I did not expect this day to come. Rion smiled. Neither did I. Kayla's eyes searched his face. There is something more. He nodded. I know. She took a deep breath. The first time I threw a spear at you, I wanted to defeat you. Now, I throw it again as a promise. Rion smiled and held out his hand, offering the spear back to her. Kayla took it and then placed her hand over his. The crowd nearby paused, watching. Without words, they understood. This was not just a treaty between two races. It was a bond between two souls. Rion spoke softly. I don't want to leave Velar. I want to stay with you. Kayla's cheeks flushed. Then stay. He smiled wider. Together, the sun set slowly, painting the sky with colors of orange and purple. The city glowed with new light, and the future felt bright. The warrior who once tried to defeat him now chose to walk beside him. Together, they faced the world not as enemies, but as partners. Their story was only beginning.